The abduction. The soft glow of computer screens illuminated Zora's face as her fingers danced across the keyboard. At just 16 years old, she was already making waves in the world of quantum computing. Her latest algorithm promised to revolutionize data encryption, a feat that had caught the attention of tech giants and governments alike. But it wasn't only humans who had taken notice of Zora's brilliance. High above Earth's atmosphere, cloaked from the prying eyes of terrestrial observatories, an alien vessel hung in silent vigil. Its occupants, the Voraxians, had been monitoring human technological progress for decades. They had watched with growing interest as this small blue planet on the fringes of the galaxy began to make exponential leaps in scientific understanding. Aboard the ship, Commander Zix studied the holographic projection of Zora's profile. This human child, he mused, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with anticipation. Her cognitive abilities far surpassed those of her peers. She could be the key to unlocking the full potential of the Nexus Core. The Nexus Core was the Voraxians' greatest achievement and their most closely guarded secret. A biomechanical supercomputer of unparalleled processing power, it had propelled their civilization to dominance over a significant portion of the galaxy. But for all its might, the core had reached a plateau. Its creators could no longer push its capabilities further. "Prepare the extraction team," Zix ordered. "We move tonight." Back on Earth, oblivious to the alien machinations that would soon upend her life, Zora stretched and glanced at the clock. 2:37 a.m. She'd done it again, lost track of time in the depths of her work. Her parents would be furious if they knew she was still awake. With a yawn, she saved her progress and shut down her computer. As she turned to leave her small home office, a flicker of movement outside the window caught her eye. Curious, she peered out into the darkness. The night sky erupted in a blaze of light. Zora stumbled back, momentarily blinded. When her vision cleared, she found herself face to face with a being that defied description. Vaguely humanoid, but with skin that seemed to shift and shimmer like liquid metal, the alien regarded her with eyes that glowed with an inner light. "Zara Chen." The being spoke, its voice resonating in her mind rather than her ears. "Your presence is required." Before she could scream, before she could even fully process what was happening, Zara felt a strange tingling sensation envelop her body. The world around her began to fade, her familiar surroundings dissolving into a swirl of colors, and then nothing. When Zara regained consciousness, she found herself in a vast, circular chamber. The walls pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and unfamiliar constellations swirled on a domed ceiling high above. She was strapped to a chair, surrounded by tall, willowy figures that regarded her with a mix of curiosity and cold calculation. Commander Zix stepped forward, his form towering over her. "Welcome aboard the Voraxian flagship, young human. Your journey to greatness begins now." Zara's mind raced, 1,000 questions fighting for dominance. But one thought rose above the rest. She needed to find a way out of this, to get back home. The Voraxians might have technology beyond her wildest dreams, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the human spirit. As Zix launched into an explanation of why she had been brought here and what would be expected of her, Zara's brilliant mind was already at work. She absorbed every detail of her surroundings, noting potential weaknesses, analyzing the alien technology that surrounded her. They wanted her to enhance their precious Nexus Core. Fine, but she would do it on her terms, and when the moment was right, she would show these aliens exactly what humanity was capable of. For now, though, she would play along. Learn, adapt, and plan. "I understand," Zara said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "When do we begin?" Zix's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Excellent. Your training starts immediately." As Zara was led away to what would become her new laboratory and living quarters, she cast one last glance at the starfield visible through a massive viewport. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. She silently vowed that she would see it again, no matter the cost. The Varaxians had no idea what they had just set in motion. In their arrogance, they believed they were harnessing the useful tool. Instead, they had inadvertently sparked a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of their empire. For in Zara Chen, the indomitable spirit of humanity had found its champion, and the galaxy would never be the same. The resistance days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. Zara's initial fear and homesickness gradually gave way to a steely determination. The Varaxians had provided her with technology beyond her wildest dreams, believing that by doing so, they were molding her into the perfect tool for their ambitions. Instead, they were arming their own nemesis. Zara stood before a holographic display, her fingers dancing through the air as she manipulated complex quantum equations. To the Varaxian overseer watching from the corner, it appeared she was diligently working on optimizing the Nexus Core's processing algorithms. In reality, she was weaving an intricate web of code that would serve as the foundation for her resistance. Impressive progress, human. The overseer, a Varaxian named Vex, commented. Your cognitive adaptation rate exceeds our projections. Zara turned, offering a carefully crafted smile. Thank you, Overseer Vex. The challenges you present are stimulating. As Vex launched into another lecture on the glory of the Varaxian Empire and her role in its expansion, Zara's mind wandered to her latest discovery. During her mandated rest periods, she had managed to access a restricted database, uncovering a trove of information about other species the Varaxians had subjugated. The revelation had been both heartbreaking and galvanizing. She wasn't alone in her captivity. Across the vast Varaxian fleet, brilliance from 100 worlds had been press-ganged into service. Scientists, engineers, and savants from civilizations she had never heard of, all working under the watchful eyes of their conquerors. Is everything clear, Zara? Vex's question snapped her back to the present. Crystal clear, Overseer. I'll have the new subroutines ready for implementation by the next solar cycle. As Vex left, satisfied with her apparent compliance, Zara returned to her work. But now, hidden beneath layers of mundane code, a plan was taking shape. A plan that would require patience, cunning, and no small amount of risk. Over the next few weeks, Zara began to implement her strategy. She introduced subtle bugs into the Nexus Core's secondary systems, nothing critical enough to raise immediate alarms, but cumulative annoyances that would keep the Varaxian technicians distracted. Meanwhile, she used these manufactured problems as an excuse to request access to more of the ship's systems, slowly expanding her reach. But her masterstroke came in the form of a simple subroutine, buried deep within the Core's communication protocols. To the Varaxians, it appeared to be an elegant solution for optimizing data transfer. In truth, it was a skeleton key, a backdoor that would allow Zara to send and receive messages across the entire Varaxian network without detection. As she worked, Zara couldn't help but reflect on the irony of her situation. The very skills that had drawn the Varaxians' attention, her gift for encryption and data manipulation, were now the tools of her rebellion. Late one night cycle, when the ship's activities were at their lowest ebb, Zara activated her clandestine communication system for the first time. Her heart raced as she composed a simple message, broadcasting it to every enslaved intellect in the Varaxian fleet. You are not alone. We are not beaten. Hope lives. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages flooded in from all corners of the empire, expressions of shock, joy, and desperate hope. Zara worked feverishly, sorting through the chaos, beginning to form connections and alliances. A Zentaran physicist, whose people had been conquered a century ago, offered crucial insights into Varaxian shield technology. An Iloxian bioengineer shared secrets of adaptive camouflage. With each exchange, the foundation of a resistance movement grew stronger. But it was a message from an unexpected source that truly changed the game. Hidden among the chorus of alien voices, Zara found a transmission that made her blood run cold. To the unknown ally. This is Captain Elena Santos of the Earth Defense Force. "We've been searching for you, Zora. Hold on. We're coming." Humanity had not forgotten her. They were out there, searching the stars. The realization filled Zora with a mix of elation and dread. Her people were pushing into the cosmos, but they had no idea of the danger that awaited them. The stakes had just gotten higher. It wasn't just about her freedom anymore, or even the freedom of the other enslaved species. Now she had to find a way to warn Earth, to prepare them for the threat of the Voraxian Empire. Zora's fingers flew across the holographic interface as she composed her reply. "Captain Santos, this is Zora Chen. The situation is critical. Humanity is in danger. I'm sending you all the data I can. But please, whatever you do, do not engage the Voraxians directly. I have a plan, but I need time." As she worked through the night, coordinating with her growing network of allies and feeding information to the Earth Defense Force, Zora allowed herself a small smile. The Voraxians had sought to use her mind as a weapon for their empire. Instead, she had become the architect of their downfall. The resistance was no longer just an idea. It was a living, growing force, spreading through the Voraxian Empire like wildfire. And at its heart was a young girl from Earth, armed with nothing but her intellect and an unbreakable spirit. In the vast, cold expanse of space, a spark of hope had been ignited, and Zora Chen swore that she would fan that spark into a blaze that would light up the galaxy. The Alliance. The Voraxian flagship hummed with its usual efficiency, but beneath the surface, a revolution was brewing. Zora sat cross-legged on her bed, her eyes closed in apparent meditation. In reality, her mind was racing through the encrypted channels she had established, coordinating with allies across the vast fleet. "The Krillic delegation is on board," came a message from Zax, a Zentaran physicist who had become one of her most trusted collaborators. "They're skeptical, but willing to listen." Zora allowed herself a small smile. The Krillics, with their natural affinity for quantum entanglement, could be a game-changer for their communication network. "Excellent work, Zax. Set up a secure channel. I'll speak with them personally." As she prepared for the meeting, Zora reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a desperate cry into the void had blossomed into a full-fledged resistance movement. Species that had been enemies under Voraxian rule were now working together, united by a common goal: freedom. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the sinuous, almost liquid form of the Krillic ambassador. So, the being's thoughts translated directly into Zora's mind. "You are the architect of this alliance." "I am," Zora replied, her voice steady. "And I'm here to offer you a chance at freedom." Over the next hour, Zora laid out her plan. She spoke of the weaknesses they had discovered in Voraxian technology, of the growing network of allies throughout the fleet, and of the human ships that were even now searching for them. "But why should we trust you?" the Krillic asked. "How do we know this isn't some elaborate Voraxian trap?" Zora took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth, because I'm about to show you something the Voraxians would never allow you to see. With a few quick gestures, she brought up a holographic display of the Nexus Core's central matrix. The Krillic's form rippled in what Zora had come to recognize as surprise. This is impossible. No one but the highest-ranking Voraxians have access to this." "I do," Zora said simply. "And I can give you access too. With your help, we can turn the Voraxians' greatest weapon against them." The Krillic was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, its form solidified into a more humanoid shape, a sign of respect in their culture. "We are with you, Zora of Earth. What would you have us do?" As the Krillics joined their cause, Zora felt a surge of hope. But she knew that unity alone wouldn't be enough. They needed a plan, a way to strike at the heart of the Voraxian Empire. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Nyx, a Volcran engineer who had been working on the Voraxians' propulsion systems, stumbled upon a startling discovery. "The hyperdrive cores," Nyx explained in a hurried transmission. "They're all connected through a subspace network. It's how the Voraxians coordinate their fleet movements. Zara's mind raced with the implications. If we could access that network, we could bring their entire fleet to a standstill. Nyx finished. It was an audacious plan, fraught with risk. But as Zara shared the idea with her growing circle of allies, she saw the same fire of hope ignite in their eyes. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. The Krillix worked tirelessly to expand their communication network, using their mastery of quantum entanglement to create channels the Voraxians couldn't detect. The Zentarans focused on cracking the encryption on the hyperdrive network, while the Volcrins and others worked on a virus that could disable the drives without causing catastrophic failures. All the while, Zara continued her work on the Nexus core, using her growing understanding of its systems to lay the groundwork for their eventual takeover. It was a delicate balance, pushing the boundaries of her access without alerting the Voraxians to her true intentions. As their plans neared fruition, Zara received another transmission from Captain Santos. "We've pinpointed your location, Zora. The fleet is ready. Just say the word, and we'll come in guns blazing." Zara's heart raced at the thought of rescue, of seeing her home again. But she knew it wasn't time. Not yet. "Stand by, Captain. We're not ready for a direct confrontation. But soon we'll need you." The day of reckoning approached. Allies throughout the fleet stood ready, each with their assigned tasks. As Zara made her final preparations, she took a moment to address the coalition she had built. "Today, we strike a blow for freedom," she said, her voice carried across the secret channels to every corner of the Voraxian Empire. "Not just for ourselves, but for every species that has suffered under Voraxian rule. We come from different worlds, with different histories and cultures. But today, we stand as one." She paused, feeling the weight of countless hopes and fears resting on her young shoulders. "Whatever happens, know that you are not alone. We face this challenge together. And together, we will prevail." As her words faded, a hush fell over the resistance. In her quarters, Zara took a deep breath and placed her hand on the holographic interface. "Initiating Operation Prometheus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. With that command, chaos erupted throughout the Voraxian fleet. Hyperdrives failed, communication systems went dark, and the Nexus core, the beating heart of the Voraxian Empire, began to turn against its masters. The revolution had begun, and at its center stood Zora Chen, a girl from Earth who had become the unlikely leader of a galactic uprising. As alarms blared and confusion spread through the ship, Zora allowed herself a small, fierce smile. The Voraxians were about to learn a lesson that humanity had known for millennia. The most dangerous force in the universe is a free mind with nothing left to lose. The uprising. Chaos reigned aboard the Voraxian flagship. Alarms blared, emergency lights flashed, and confused shouts echoed through the corridors. In the heart of it all, Zara stood before the central console of the Nexus core, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as she fought for control of the vast network. "Firewall breach in Sector 7, came Zax's urgent voice through her earpiece. "The Voraxians are trying to lock us out." Zara gritted her teeth, sweat beading on her forehead as she countered the attack. "Not today," she muttered, implementing a series of rapid code changes that sent the Voraxian technicians scrambling. Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out. The virus developed by the Coalition had crippled the Voraxians' hyperdrive network, leaving their ships stranded and scattered. Communication systems were in disarray, with resistance members intercepting and scrambling orders faster than the Voraxians could issue them. But the Empire wasn't going down without a fight. As the initial shock wore off, the Voraxians began to rally. Heavily armed security teams swept through the ships, trying to regain control of key systems. "Zara, we've got incoming." It was Nyx, the Volcrin engineer. Security teams approaching the core chamber. ETA 2 minutes. Zara's mind raced. They needed more time to complete the takeover of the Nexus core. "Nyx, initiate Protocol Omega. Seal all bulkheads leading to this section." But that'll trap you in there, Nyx protested. Just do it, Zora commanded. As the heavy doors slammed shut around her, she turned her full attention back to the core. Come on, she whispered. Show me your secrets. Outside the sealed chamber, chaos continued to unfold. The diverse species that made up the resistance fought with everything they had. Zenturans used their advanced knowledge of Voraxian shield technology to disable weapon systems. Krillix employed their quantum abilities to disrupt enemy communications. Even those without special skills or knowledge played their part, causing distractions and sabotaging equipment. In the midst of the fighting, an unexpected ally emerged. A young Voraxian technician named Vril, who had been secretly sympathetic to Zora's cause, chose this moment to act. Using his high-level access, he began to systematically lock Voraxian commanders out of their own systems. This is for every species you've enslaved, Vril muttered as he worked, his actions broadcasting a powerful message. Not all Voraxians supported their empire's cruel regime. Back in the core chamber, Zara was making progress. Layer by layer, she was peeling back the Nexus core's defenses, but time was running out. The pounding on the sealed doors was growing louder, and the core itself was fighting back, its AI adapting to her every move. Just as it seemed Zora might be overwhelmed, a familiar voice crackled through her comm device. Zara, this is Captain Santos. The Earth Defense Force has entered the system. We're engaging Voraxian patrol ships now. What's your status? A surge of hope gave Zara renewed energy. Captain, we've crippled their fleet mobility, but we're still fighting for control of their central AI. We need more time. Understood, Santos replied, her voice steady despite the sounds of battle in the background. We'll keep them busy up here. Just tell us where you need us. As the space battle raged above, Zara redoubled her efforts. The Nexus Core's defenses were formidable, but she had an advantage the Voraxians hadn't counted on. The combined knowledge and skills of a dozen different species, all working in harmony. Zax, I need a quantum encryption key, she called out. Nyx, stand by with that bypass sequence. Vril, if you can hear me, I need full access to the command protocols. One by one, the pieces fell into place. The Nexus Core's resistance began to falter, its processes stuttering as Zara and her team rewrote its core directives. Just as victory seemed within reach, a massive explosion rocked the chamber. The sealed door burst inward, and a squad of Voraxian elite guards stormed in, weapons raised. Step away from the console, human, the lead guard snarled. Zara stood her ground, her hands still moving across the interface. I can't do that, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. You see, I'm not finished yet. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger of his weapon. This is your final warning. Time seemed to slow. Zara could hear her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She was so close, just a few more seconds, and a blinding flash filled the room. When it cleared, the Voraxian guards lay unconscious on the floor. In the doorway stood Captain Elena Santos, flanked by a team of Earth's finest soldiers. Sorry we're late, Santos said with a grin. Traffic was hell. Zara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Your timing is impeccable, Captain. Now, if you don't mind, I have an empire to topple. With renewed determination, Zara turned back to the Nexus Core. The final firewalls fell away, and suddenly, she had full control. The vast knowledge and power of the Voraxian Empire was at her fingertips. As the realization of their victory began to spread throughout the fleet, cheers and cries of joy erupted from countless throats. Species that had been enslaved for generations tasted freedom for the first time. But Zara knew their work was far from over. They had won the battle. But ensuring lasting peace and freedom for all would be a far greater challenge. As she looked out at the sea of faces, human, Zenturan, Krillix, Volcrin, and even some Voraxians, Zara felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The galaxy was changing, and she had been the catalyst. What now? Captain Santos asked, coming to stand beside her. Zara took a deep breath, her mind already racing with plans and possibilities. Now, she said, a small smile playing on her lips, we build a better future, together. The uprising had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But the real work, Zara knew, was just beginning. The triumph. The days following the successful uprising were a whirlwind of activity. As news of the Varaxian Empire's fall spread across the galaxy, long subjugated worlds erupted in celebration. But amidst the joy, Zara and her allies faced the monumental task of ensuring that the power vacuum didn't lead to chaos. Aboard the former Varaxian flagship, now rechristened Unity, Zara stood before a diverse assembly of representatives from dozens of species. The ship's grand conference chamber, once a symbol of Varaxian dominance, now served as the birthplace of a new galactic alliance. We've won our freedom, Zara began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. But freedom without direction can quickly become anarchy. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to build something better than what came before. The assembled delegates listened intently as Zara outlined her vision for a galactic cooperative, a union of free worlds working together for mutual benefit and protection. It wouldn't be easy. Centuries of mistrust and conflict couldn't be erased overnight, but it was a start. As the discussions progressed, challenges emerged. Some species, long oppressed, called for retribution against their former Varaxian masters. Others, like the Krillix, were hesitant to enter into any form of centralized government, fearing it might lead to another empire. Zara listened to each concern, her mind working to find compromises and solutions. She was no longer just the girl who had sparked a rebellion. She had become a diplomat, a peacemaker, and a leader. We cannot undo the past, she told the assembly, but we can learn from it. The Varaxians' mistake was believing that dominance equaled strength. True strength comes from unity, from embracing our differences and working together. Her words seemed to resonate, and slowly, a framework for the new galactic cooperative began to take shape. Zara made sure that safeguards were put in place to prevent any one species or individual from gaining too much power. The Nexus Core, once a tool of oppression, was repurposed to serve as a neutral mediator and repository of knowledge for all member worlds. As the days turned into weeks, Zara found moments to reflect on her incredible journey. She thought of her home on Earth, of the family she had left behind. Captain Santos had offered to take her back, but Zara knew her work here wasn't finished. One evening, as she stood looking out at the stars from the Unity's observation deck, she was joined by Vril, the young Varaxian who had aided their cause. "Do you think it will last?" Vril asked, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the starlight. "This peace we're building." Zara considered the question carefully. "I think it has a chance. More than that, it has to last. We've seen the alternative." Vril nodded solemnly. "My people have much to atone for. Some say we don't deserve a place in this new cooperative." "Everyone deserves a chance at redemption," Zara said firmly. "Your actions during the uprising proved that not all Varaxians supported the old regime. We'll need voices like yours to help bridge the divides." As they talked, a commotion from the nearby communications hub caught their attention. Rushing over, they found a crowd gathered around a holographic display. Repeating, "This is a priority message from Earth," a voice was saying. "To Zara Chen and all members of the Earth Defense Force, the United Nations has voted unanimously to join the Galactic Cooperative. We stand ready to do our part in building this new era of peace and cooperation." Cheers erupted from the human crew members present, and Zara felt a swell of pride. Humanity, in its own way, had passed a test. Instead of retreating from the galactic stage, they were choosing to engage, to be part of something greater than themselves. In the months that followed, the Galactic Cooperative grew and evolved. Former enemy species learned to work together, pooling their knowledge and resources. Zara watched with satisfaction as joint scientific missions were launched, as trade routes were established between worlds that had never before communicated. There were setbacks, of course. Old grudges didn't disappear overnight, and there were those who sought to take advantage of the new order for their own gain. But each challenge was met with determination and ingenuity. A year to the day after the uprising, Zara stood on the bridge of a new ship, the GCS Explorer. It was the cooperative's first joint venture, a vessel crewed by members of a dozen different species, dedicated to peaceful exploration and scientific discovery. As the ship prepared for its maiden voyage, Zara addressed the crew. A year ago, many of us were enemies, slaves, or both. Today we stand united, not just in this ship, but in purpose. We set out not to conquer, but to learn. Not to dominate, but to understand. She paused, looking at the diverse faces before her: human, Zentaran, Krillic, Volcrin, Voraxian, and others. Each had a story, each had suffered, and each had chosen to be part of this new beginning. The galaxy is vast, and there is so much we don't know. But together, there's nothing we can't achieve. Our differences are not our weakness. They are our greatest strength. As the explorer's engines hummed to life and the stars beckoned, Zara felt a sense of profound hope. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. And for the first time in a long while, it looked bright. The triumph they had achieved wasn't just the defeat of an empire. It was the birth of a new way of thinking, a new way of coexisting. As the ship leaped into hyperspace, carrying with it the dreams and aspirations of countless worlds, Zara knew that their greatest adventures and challenges still lay ahead. But whatever came, they would face it together. And that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.